What's up, family? This is Montell Watson, and we have brought Grab the Key to the West Coast. Not only West Coast, the Pacific Northwest here in Seattle, Tacoma. Man, I'm so excited. So we can talk about generational wealth through home ownership. So I love you guys. I'm so excited and so pumped to be out here. What's up, Tacoma? What's up, Movement family? What's up, Movement Extended family? Everybody out there watching us live today. My name is Montell Watson. I lead our diversity lending at Movement Mortgage. And guys, I am super excited to be out here in the Pacific Northwest. Man, I'm super excited. I even brought the rain out here. I brought the rain when I came. I'm so excited, so pumped. No, seriously, it's been a lovely, warm welcome to come out here in Tacoma, man. It's been beautiful. All of our family out here, our movement family, extended family, have been great. And I even had a chance to. My barber back home in Charlotte is going to be very upset because I might have to fly out here to get my hair cut because he gave me a nice clean edge up. But no, guys, we're out here today because it's a conversation that needs to be had around America. It's an important conversation. We launched Grab the Key several years ago because we wanted to bring education and awareness to the Black communities across the country, because the opportunity to own a home changes people's lives. Generational wealth is an important conversation that needs to be had all across the country. And gosh, Grab the Key, if you get a chance, everybody go to grabthekey.com and watch the powerful video that we've put together so that we can continue to have voices heard across the country on why this is important. Generational wealth changes lives, and we can do that through home ownership, guys. And as we think about the history of housing in the Black community, you take a step back to 1968, Fair Housing Act being passed, when Dr. King laid down his entire life for equality in housing, for people that look like myself to have an opportunity to own a home. And to think about that, and that the rate of homeownership across the country and across America today is still at the same rate it was then. We need to have that conversation. And to think about in Tacoma, right now today, let's take a step back. In the country, 4 out of every 10 people, 10 Black Americans own a home. 4 out of every 10. In Tacoma, it's around 2 out of every 10, right? And so we need to have that conversation here. And not only have the conversation, we need to inspire, and as lenders, real estate professionals, people in our industry, we need to inspire and we need to help people take that next step of homeownership and grabbing the keys. So guys, we have a fantastic group of individuals today that are here as guests and panelists that are going to help us break down misconceptions, that are going to help us educate and help individuals take that next step of grabbing the keys of homeownership. You guys ready? Ready to do it? All right, let's do it. All right. I'm going to take a seat here, and I'm going to have my first guest up here today. Clinton and Dinero, come on up. Yeah, show them some love. Appreciate you, brothers, both of you. This is a special moment. This is very special. And I'm going to let both of you guys tell your own stories, but gosh, Dinero, guys, sitting right here beside me. This is a full circle moment. We launched this video around 2 years ago, the Grab the Key video and initiative. We launched it, and Dinero's sitting right beside me right now today. He had a chance to see that video, and that video inspired him. And I'm not going to tell his full story, but I'm going to let you tell that story. But it inspired you to take some next steps. And man, I'd love for you to open up and just kind of tell your story around Grab the Key.
For sure. So I got into I got into real estate a little differently. Most people get into real estate because they're like, oh, I can make some money, right? And you can, right?
That's right.
But I got into real estate. My main job is I'm an educator at the Evergreen State College. I run a program called Gateways for Incarcerated Youth. It's an inside-out program where I take full-time college students into juvenile male prison, and we co-learn together, right? So kids that got caught up in the school to prison pipeline, now we're trying to help them have a lust for learning again, right? And I've been doing that for about 10 years. My wife is a loan officer with Movement. And I've always been in the background of real estate, right? Hearing the ins and outs, the ups and the downs. And during COVID, my wife basically moved into her office became the bedroom.
Like a lot of us, right?
Yeah. And I got to hear all the ins and outs, right? And I was
taste
like,
you got a little taste?
Yeah, a little taste. And I was like, wow, like, okay, I can do that too, right? But it was also in the sense of how do I take what I'm learning and give it back to the kids I'm trying to help reestablish their lives, right? So for me, it was home ownership is for everybody. And education, because that's my MO and that's what I'm about, was like, okay, let me learn something new so I can teach it on to somebody else so they can survive, right? And that's how I got into real estate. I got my license and I said, for me, it's not about the money. It's about educating people that look like me and helping them understand how much wealth and how much they can legacy down to the next generation. Yeah. Because that's what I didn't have, even though I had people in positions to do that for me. You know, my grandmother is a graduate of Fort Valley State, you know, HBCU, but she moved up from Georgia to New Jersey, where I'm from, and she got caught up in the rat race, right? And never imparted me any knowledge whatsoever. So yeah, that's basically why I got into it.
I love it, man. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing it. It's powerful, powerful. My man, Clinton, man, I just had the chance to spend some time and meet Clinton over the last several weeks, but I feel like I know you. I feel like I've known you, that we go way back. That's what it feels like. And man, you're doing some special things here, you know, in the local community. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about, you know, who you are and what you're doing in the community.
Well, first of all, thank you for including me in this. I consider this an opportunity anytime we get a chance to speak before folks and share what we do and talk about. One of my things my mentor said to me a long time ago when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, he said, well, what is it that you would do for free that you would love to get paid to do? And I said, help people. And so I started off on a journey of helping just anybody, really. It was no particular age group, but over the last several years, because of my own lived experience of having been incarcerated, having grown up in poverty, having been the victim of the trauma that poverty passes along and down through generations, and seeing some of the effects of that, of growing up in neighborhoods where a lot of times you're a victim of your surroundings. And so for me, I've always done something around education or working with young people. And one of the things that was never presented to me was, how do we talk to kids about money? And I'm sure if I polled the room in here, most of you would say, yeah, man, I wish somebody would have talked to me when I was a youngster about money. So I founded an organization about 4 years ago called Your Money Matters, which is a financial literacy program. It's a mentorship program centered around financial literacy. And what we do is we focus on 16 to 25-year-old young Black and brown students who look like myself, who live in communities that I grew up in, and trying to give them the basics around how to start thinking about managing money. But the way that I developed the program was to not just teach them how to start managing money, but what I want them is to understand is how to start developing and having a healthy relationship with your money. Because whether we grow it or not, we're all in a relationship with our money, and how you treat your money is how your money responds to you. And so if they can get that and understand their why, then we can get to the budget and savings and credit and all that stuff down the road. But you got to first understand the why, because nobody ever sat down with me and taught me about money. And I'll share this last thing is I was I always share in the class with the students even to the point about housing, because I'm a financial educator. So I talk a lot about, financial institutions, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember sharing a story one day with the kids, and it's kind of like my go-to story now, so to speak, is when I was growing up, living in the urban community, I don't ever recall seeing anybody that looked like me go in a bank. So when I was a kid growing up, I thought banks were for rich people and white people that had money because nobody looked like me. We went to check cashing places, payday loan places, liquor stores. And if you're my age, you could cash your paycheck back then at the grocery store in the checkout line. And so that was my experience growing up with banking, let alone knowing anybody that owned a house, let alone that. And so this has been a passion of mine. I've worked in education for a lot of years, not as a teacher, but in the schools at various roles. But I've never seen a class. It's not even required in high school that they learn it. It's not part of high school requirement for graduation. And so when do they learn it? And especially talking about buying homes and land and being homeowners, that's foreign to my students when I start talking to them about that. So that's kind of where my journey took the turn from, working with youth and, more or less gang prevention and drug treatment. I've done all that, but this was really intrigued me when I started thinking about, wow, I don't ever recall anybody sitting down with me as a youngster and really just telling me how money works. And this is how money can impact your life if you know how to use it as a tool more so than just ways to spend it.
Love it, man. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Gosh, both you fantastic educators pouring back in the youth. I love it. I love it. Clint, I'm going to start with you with this question as we kind of kick in and get into things here. Generational wealth, right? We talk about generational wealth. And as we think about home ownership, for a lot of us, it is a generational experience, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what has your generational experience been with home ownership?
Well, I kind of got into it a little bit here in the introduction, but I didn't know anybody growing up that owned a house. I didn't know anybody really growing up that owned much of anything, right? We're taught to work, get a job, save, and do all of those things. And I share with my students often that, my dad showed me how to, rest his soul, he showed me how to, fix stuff with my hands and, be handy around the house and all that, but never showed me how to balance a checkbook. Let alone told me about how to buy a car or buy a house. And so I didn't know. And so now for me, it's a passion, not only just talking about how to buy a house, but why is that important? Why is it important to be an owner? Why is it important to own something? Because if you don't own anything, you ain't really in the game. And so until we really understand that ownership it empowers you and it gives you, here's the main thing, is it gives you options.
Truth.
And so that was something that as I look back now, that perpetuates that generational wealth gap and that cycle of poverty that continues to plague the Black and brown community. It's not that we don't own stuff. It's just that we've never been taught to really think about where we spend our money.
Yeah.
And so no one ever came to us and said, hey, you ought to, buy a house. A house. Why would I do that?
No one ever said that to me.
Yeah. Where would I even begin? So I've seen it, and I'm the only person in my family of my siblings and my mom and my immediate family that owns owns a home, owns property. And even trying to have that conversation with them, the first thing they'll say is they can't afford it. Like, well, who told you that? Why do you think that? Where'd you get that from? So that's been kind of my personal experience with it, is that nobody else in my family owns anything but me. And then I've seen it over the years, from other extended family.
Thank you, man. Yeah. Dinero, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts on that and the way I grew up with it was, it wasn't necessarily about home ownership. I knew people that owned homes, but the way my life revolved, it was around, how do I pay my rent next month? All right. So for me, it was survival of the fittest. Right. I saw my mom scrambling. Right. So everything that we did was, how do we move from month to month? It wasn't thinking about year to year, generation to generation. All right. So we're just trying to survive. So in that sense, that's what I thought. That's how you live life. Right. As long as I can pay my rent, I'm good. I was happy when my mom paid her rent. We didn't have to move somewhere else. We weren't getting evicted or whatever, what have you. So it's different because everybody around me was in the same boat, right? It wasn't until I started actually like showing some signs of being good at playing baseball, right? And getting around white people, because that's a rich white sport, right? And and I walked into these homes because they were like, you're good enough to be around us, right? Because there's something you're giving us that, you know what I mean? So like, and I walk into these white homes like, wow, what is this? And they were like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. This is gonna be mine. Like literally 12-year-old kids are like, this is mine. And when I get older, like talking about wills and stuff like that, I'm like, what is that? I'm just trying to survive to the next, you know what I mean, week. Yeah. And then so that's how I eventually knew like, oh, there's bigger and better things. But even still then, I was just too young to realize it. And I think we all kind of had that story, like when we kind of, a light bulb goes off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when your parents don't talk about it, your grandparents don't talk about it, your cousins, your uncles, you don't have no one around in your general circle that's talking about like, this is what you need to do to advance in life, and it'll help you down the road. You'll never know. And we all have someone that did try to impart that, right? But for the most part, you know, they might have been the drunk uncle or you know what I mean? Like this is the dude that was just
young buck. Yeah,
like,
young
you know
buck.
what I
Go
mean?
get
Like,
that house, young buck. Yeah.
yeah. So it's just we just like whatever. Yo, we just trying to live life for today,
Right.
you know. And that's the part that's upsetting with our community, that we don't try to live life for our next generation. We don't think about legacies.
Yeah, and I have a similar story in the sense of I didn't think it was possible. I didn't see it. Right. I grew up. I didn't see homeownership. We didn't talk about homeownership. And so in my mind, I didn't think it was possible. And you know, for me, I actually started off in the industry. So I help people get into homes, refinance homes. But I still didn't think it was possible. And at 26 years old, I was making great money. And luckily I have a beautiful, fierce wife that has experienced homeownership and generational homeownership. And I remember we had a chance to go see the house that our first house that we bought. And I seen it and I was like, I don't know if we can afford it. I don't know, you know, all of the mindset around fear and it's not for me. This is not like, I can't do this, right? All of that, like that's in the back of our minds a lot of times in the Black community. My wife said, no, we're going to buy this house. We're going to own this house. And we bought that house, right? And luckily, you know, she pushed me from that sense, but I was a loan officer. I knew how to qualify to get into a home. But my mindset was not in the right frame to feel that it was for me.
For sure. Like you literally just showed us a video before we started, right? Less than 100 years ago, they started all these tactics, right? Like it's been integrated in us. 100 years is only, for some people, it's only 2 generations, right?
Right.
Like so 2-3 generations. My generation, the system works so perfectly that I am now not being imparted that information. And that's the cycle that we're trying to stop. Like education, information, put it out there that everyone has potential, right?
Yeah. It's the opportunity is there for us, right? The opportunity is there for us. All right. So you touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive a little further. And what you're just, it's a good segue on the trauma and the traumatic experience of redlining, seeing homes being taken away, you know, from the Black and brown community in 2008, and having that traumatic experience of not thinking that it is for you, or another piece of it, the traumatic and fear of working with the banking institutions, right? And, you know, my dad, even still to this day, my dad goes, cashes his check, puts the cash in his pocket, and he calls it a little walking around money, right? And he doesn't trust the banks, right? So, you know, how do we change in the Black community? How do we change that narrative that we can't trust the Black communities? Excuse me, we can't trust the financial institutions. You can take
Well-
this. You can take this first one. It's fine.
Well, in part, that's part of what we do in my program, because we focus a lot on the mindsets. I wrote the curriculum, so I was intentional about addressing how we think about things, right? Because if you can address and know how you think about something, then you have the ability to change that, right? And that's the first place it starts, is like, okay, even though they're redlining and even though they are doing unethical practices and although they're predatory lenders and so on and so on and so on, that's only the case because you don't know. And what you don't know is usually what hurts you the most. And once you know, then you're obligated, you're responsible to do something about it. And so for our initiative, what I'm focusing on is teaching our young people how to start thinking about money as a tool and not necessarily as something to spend and buy stuff with. And we can start addressing that and really thinking about where you spend your money, why you spend your money, how you spend your money, why you spend your money that way, and where you spend your money, and giving them the tools. So we're a mentorship program. And so once they go through our courses, we pair them up with mentors to work with them, to help them as they're unpacking the information that we taught them. And so I just see that the redlining and some of the unethical practices that we know that are out here, I share with my students, like, you don't think anything about going to Walmart, and I'm just throwing them out there, not pointing fingers at anybody, but you think a lot about when you go into Walmart, and a lot of these stores like Safeway, Albertsons, Fred Meyer's, and whatever local chain store by where you live, they've gotten into the check cashing business. Because when you go in there, they got the customer service thing now, so it's no big deal to cash a check there, or it's no big deal to do all of your electric bills and money orders and stuff there. And so when you think about why folks don't trust the banks, is because I was laughing when you was talking. It's like my grandmother was like, I ain't putting my money in the bank. Them white folks ain't gonna take my money, and I know how to deal with my money. And she kept it in the cookie jar and in the can and in the little places and stuff. So I think one of the ways, again, back to your point, is that we need to educate our young people on why it's important to have a relationship with the banking institution or a financial institution, how the financial institution works, and then using that to leverage that to be able to do X, Y, Z. Because I had a student one day, I take my kids on field trips to banks, and I take them on field trips to financial institutions so that they have that experience of actually having gone into a bank or gone into a credit union. And I literally had a student stand outside of a bank one day and say, I ain't going in there. And I was like, why? He said, because they don't want us in there. Why would I go in there? And I said, who told you that? And he got that from, this other places. And so I think that's really where it starts, is really educating them and letting them understand, really, man, just how money works.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, bro, is that we just don't understand the money game and how money works. And it's not that complicated.
Right.
We just don't understand it because no one's ever really sat down and really said, like, okay, this is how you do this, and this is how you position yourself to get a house, and then you do this, and you pull this and flip and do that. We just have never been taught that game. And once we get it, every student that I work with, that we work with them to do that, they're flourishing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. That's a powerful story for a young kid to stand outside of a bank and say that they don't want me in there, right? That is powerful. And I mean, it just goes to show, like, the education and the opportunity that we have as lenders, real estate agents, to continue to say, we do want you.
right.
And we want to be here. We want to lend a hand to help you and guide you on ways and opportunities to own a home and to have assets, right?
The key word you said there was leverage, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Everything in the history of this country has always been about leverage. That's all it is, right? We know how, as a community, how to flip and use money, how you know what I mean? But we just know how to do it on a lower level, right? Mm-hmm. But once we understand, you got to learn the system, right? Once you know the system and how it works, then you know how to finesse it. And you know how to leverage yourself against the system. So that's basically what we need to teach our people, is how do you leverage yourself against the system? How do you, and that's just understanding what credit is. That's understanding how banks are going to see you. They don't see you as, in this day and age, as black, white, whatever, right? They see you as a credit score. I always have the joke, right? When I write a resume, I put my credit score. That's my name. Right? You're going to hire me off my credit score because you know that I know what I'm doing. It don't matter what the job is. You know what I know what I'm doing because my credit score is high.
Pay my daggone bills on time.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all about leverage. It's leverage and networking.
So how can lenders, financial institutions, how can we do a better job of educating?
Can I go with that?
You want to jump on that one? Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Diversity. That's it. Right? Like, I don't know how many banks, you know what I mean? Like, that actually put front and center, we want to work with you, but also there's people that look like you that work with us. Right? Because that's a trust factor. That's the first thing. Right? If I don't, that's why no one wants to work with Wells Fargo or whatever, you know what I mean? Because it's a certain type of person that works with all these other people. Was I not supposed to name drop all these people that, you know what I mean, that got bailed out, in 2008 or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing, right? So it's like, it's also working with people that that put their boots on the ground, in a sense, right? Like, Movement is doing specific things to show you that we also in the trenches with you, right? Like, y'all invest in schools and different things like that to help communities thrive. A lot of these other banks, they do it just because they need either the diversity hire or they need to, pander for a certain month of the year, right? And it's not about that. So at the end of the day, it's diversity, but it's how are you using that diversity? Like, are you really going into the HBCUs and hiring? Y'all in South Carolina, I'm going to say this, or North Carolina, where y'all at? In the Carolinas, right? The Kakalakis.
Yep.
There's a lot of HBCUs down there.
It's a lot.
Are y'all hiring out of those HBCUs?
I'm gonna take that one.
Okay, go ahead.
Take that one. Now, so we're partnering with Fannie and Freddie specifically, that they have a program that partners with the HBCUs that helps from an internship perspective and bringing folks on. So that's something that we're partnering with them on.
Yeah, and that's where it starts, right? Like, you feeding back into those schools, into those people that's where the education is, because they're going to go back and they're going to give it to their families. Yeah. And that's what we need. We don't have that all around the country. And that's why I appreciate that y'all came out here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To also lend a hand.
Well, I think that I like all of that. I think it's about a partnership. The diversity is great. And there should be more diversity. Again, that's another reason why I take my students on field trips to financial institutions, because, having been a workforce manager before and done job training stuff, I'm always thinking about this could be also a potential introduction to them to a career pathway they never thought about, right? Because when you go into, most of the time when I'm in these rooms, in these meetings, talking to bank executives and, financial executives and wealth management planners and folks, I'm the only person in the room of color. And so I'm always trying to encourage the students to think about that as a career pathway. But I like partnering with the financial institutions. And I know in the real world, when they walk into a bank, they don't have time to sit down with every client that comes to the door and try to teach you about banking. Because when you come through the door, it's a business. They may have a few minutes to kind of show you a few things. But I think that the financial institutions should be more intentional about partnering with organizations to make sure that, that the community that you have branches and locations in, you invested in those. Right. And so I know from the banking standpoint, they get the CRA hours, they get 8 hours or whatever it is. I feel like there should be a more intentional effort on the parts of the folks. If you have a facility, an institution in a specific community, I almost feel like you owe that community to be invested and engaged and involved in what's going on in that community. Right. Because at some point, those folks are going to come through that door, and we have to look at them more than just a product. Yeah. We have to look at them as the people in the community who come to us for a service. And in a lot of cases, they're trusting you because when they come through the door, 9 times out of 10, they don't know what they should know. And they take you at your word. And so for us, organizations like us, we like to partner with financial institutions. So if you can't do it, you could partner with us. And the last thing I'll say about that is that I think one of the things that will help with that too is put your money where your mouth is.
Preach.
Is like, you gotta invest back in the community that, that is investing in you, that's doing business with you. And so I would say that those are two really big factors, is that, invest in the community financially and invest in the community from a staff perspective.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And those last 2 points, man, I think it's very important. And I think that, at Movement, we try to challenge by doing the work, right? And from our perspective of like, we give back in the communities that we're serving, and one of our big pillars is our schools.
Yep.
Right? In our schools, we put schools in areas, underserved communities where kids have a 4% chance of leaving the zip code. Right? And if you think about that and understand that reason behind that is the past redlining that happened, right? That redlining in our past worked. And now we have to do something to change that, not only through what we do from a lending perspective, because that's very important, right? That helps today and that helps tomorrow's generation, but also like think outside the box as in financial institutions on different ways that you can actually positively affect for long-term generations, other communities, right? And that's a big way that we feel we can change generations to come through education, which both you gentlemen are already doing, and meeting people where they are, right? And that's a big piece with Grab the Key. We want to meet communities where they are and educate and bring awareness on why it's important, and then also hold your hands, along the way on the journey, because it might not work today, right? It might not work today, but it's possible, and we want to show you how it can happen, right? And how that take advantage of that opportunity. All right, we're ready to close up. I got the big one for y'all here. I got the doozy. All right. Now, so as people out here in the audience today, and as people are watching live, always love to close with this question. I think it's a very important question. If you could say one thing to encourage someone out there that is considering that has the mindset of it's not for me, I've never seen homeownership in my community, what would you say to them? Dinero, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, what I would say to them is, what are you afraid of, right? Are you afraid of yourself? Are you afraid of your own potential? At the end of the day, if I approach you or someone else approaches you about home ownership, no one's expecting you to buy a home tomorrow. All right. It's a process to it, and don't be afraid of that process. But at the end of the day, that process is going to be so rewarding for you, because this country was built on land ownership, the ownership of property. It was stolen, and then people claimed whatever they wanted to claim. And to this day, that's the one thing that doesn't depreciate, because it's a finite amount of it.
Ain't making no more land.
Yeah, exactly. They're only going to go up if they run out of land. So at the end of the day, if you own any a piece of that, like, you have leverage, as we talked about, maneuverability, and you have wealth that you can pass on, to your descendants. And that's what it's all really about, So don't be scared of that at all. Like, just run into it. And there's people that's willing to help you, like me, like Clinton, like Movement, and others, many others. So even if you have an inkling of interest and you think it's not there, you never know. Some people come across and be like, oh yeah, you could buy one tomorrow. They never had no idea, right? But it's like, get over that fear. Like, step out into the unknown,
1.6 Black millennials can qualify for a home today, and they do not. 1.6 million, Black millennials have that opportunity right now today. That's a lot of people. Clinton, what would you say to those 1.6?
Man, we talked about this the other day, and I don't know. I said something real nice on the webinar. I'm gonna use that. And I was like, he was like, "That's good, man. Say that." And for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. But I mean, there's a lot of things, man. I could say. Nothing really like gonna leave the room like, like I think about when I'm in front of my students. Because we work with 16 to 25-year-olds. So I think about how I try to encourage them to have a dream, right? And because what my mentor told me, what I would tell you is that if you don't live your dream, you'll end up living somebody else's. And so if you have a dream, your dream, you can go as far as your dream, as far as your imagination can take you. And the only limitations that you have is what you put on yourself, because the biggest investment that you'll ever make is in yourself. And so I always encourage my students, like they be talking about, I want to get in and invest in it. I want to do this and Bitcoins and I want to do all that. And I'm like, well, what do you know about it? Right? Invest the time, get the knowledge, because that's the one thing that nobody can ever take from you is knowledge. And once you get it, you can apply it. And then the sky is the limit to what you can do. And I know that there's a lot of young people out here, those 1.6 million. I know a lot of them would want to be homeowners if they knew it was possible, but sometimes you also got to suit up and show up and come to the party. And so you got to do your part too. And so that starts with you. If you want to, own a house, learn about real estate, learn how it works, learn the game. If you want to learn about Bitcoins, learn how it works. Stock market, you want to learn how it works, get the knowledge and get in the game. And then once you in, it's like, now, like you said, now you start maneuvering and you learn how to leverage and you learn how to do things to make sure that you can have the kind of life that you want to have, because the only limitations really that you'll ever have is the ones you put on yourself.
Use that one. That's the one. That's the one. That's the one. Gentlemen, thank you both so much.
Thank you. Appreciate
it. Oh, man. All right, everybody out there listening, man, two fantastic gentlemen that are helping their communities today. If you are listening, you're in the audience and you are considering, man, speak to a loan officer, speak to a real estate agent. We want to help you through that process. We want to be there to guide you. And if it's not today, it could be tomorrow. It is possible. It is possible. We're here to help you and tell you that it's possible. All right, I got my next two panelists. Ladies, you want to come up? All right. How y'all doing today? I'll let y'all get the mics first. How about that? I think you're good to go. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Fantastic. This is another special set of panelists here. Sherry, man, y'all. So, yes. So Sherry also seen the Grab the Key video when we originally posted it and launched the initiative. And man, Sherry reached out to me as soon as we posted it, and this is also the power of social media. She's over here in Seattle, Tacoma area, and she's like, when are you coming to the Pacific Northwest? You got to come out here. You have to do a Grab the Key. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm coming. We're coming. 3 months later, when are you coming out here? We need to have a Grab the Key out here. We're coming. I promise we're coming. 3 months later, we are here now. So it is a full circle moment, a very special moment to be able to come here. And we had a chance of meeting on social through something that's very important, homeownership in the Black community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your relentlessness for this. It is very, very important. And gosh, Felicia had the chance to meet you here recently. And I don't know if you guys can see this, but she came prepped and prepared. She has the key on her necklace, y'all. She is ready. And these are two strong realtors in this local community. And she came ready and prepped with the key on your neck. I love the fact that you had that ready to grab the key, ready to help you all grab the key that are out there. Two great realtors that can help you right now today find a house. or list your house, right? Or list. So ladies, I want to jump in. I want to jump on in. So I'd love to just learn and for the audience and everybody at home watching to learn a little bit about why'd you get into real estate, right? What was the reason that you jumped into real estate? So if you want to take that one first, yeah.
I think it was a lot of different life experiences that led me to this point now. My mother-in-law was an immigrant from Trinidad. She experienced her own discrimination in housing while my husband was growing up. Before, she passed away about 6 years ago, and I had several conversations with her prior to her passing away about the importance of homeownership that she directed. She had this conversation with me 3, 4 times, and it was really, really important to her that I taught my daughters the importance of homeownership. So that is one thing. And then when we moved out here to Seattle, we did experience discrimination. I have 7 children. We experienced both racial discrimination and familial discrimination when we were trying to find housing, and we ended up homeless. And when I laid my babies on that mat, I vowed that would not happen again.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Felicia.
How I got into real estate, I was bored with accounting. I had a bachelor's in accounting. I did it for 10 years. I gotta find something different.
There you go.
sorry. So that's how I got into real estate.
Awesome. So the number side was you were bored. It's time to get in the housing side. Let's get some people in the home. So
Absolutely.
I love it. So gosh, affordability. Y'all got any affordability problems out here? Huh? A little bit.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit as we think about affordability. What are some key pieces and ways that we can work around the affordability piece, or ways that we can continue to fight to help people get into homes from an affordability standpoint?
I would say finding a co-signer. If you're trying to buy a home and you're not quite there, move in with a sibling, move in with a friend, a good friend, until you're able to get on your feet the way that you want to be, is my way.
Sure.
My take on it is a little bit more legislative wise. I think that our politicians can do a way better job of passing bills that are really important that allow access to affordable housing. Things like relaxing, the zoning laws that we have here, making it so you can build a duplex where a single family residence is supposed to be. Maybe making deals with developers. Hey, if you come and redo this hotel and make it full of studio apartments, we'll give you a tax break or something like that. I think it's really hard to individually try to do it. We have to come together as a community and make sure our legislators know that this is important to us. We have a homelessness epidemic. It's not just affordability of housing. Like, there are people in our streets all up and down the Puget Sound.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely some opportunity from a legislation perspective, right? From a lender's perspective, man, we want to continue to help get people as qualified as we can, as quick as we can, as early as we can, just to be ready for those opportunities when they do come up, right? I know across the country, we've had issues with supply, right? Which that continues to push things up. But I've heard a big number. I can't exactly remember. I might've heard this on RE Source for you guys out there, little RE Source plug. My man, Ryan Hill's out here. There is a huge shortage that we have in housing across America. And it's going to be tough to catch up, right? It's going to be tough to catch up. And when we do have affordability issues, that negatively affects typically a lot of the Black and brown communities, right? And I know out here, 2 of every 10 are in homes, right? And so, yes, legislation can help, but we still want to have boots in the ground helping as best we can. So no, thank you for that perspective. But all right, diversity in the industry. You heard the 2 gentlemen, our 2 panelists up here earlier, talking about diversity in the industry. why do you ladies think it's important for us to have more diversity, not only in the, you know, the lending side, but also in the real estate side?
I think it's a comfortable factor. Seeing someone that looks like you that you can come up to and say, hey, how does this work? How does that work? How do I purchase a home? So that and education, I think, would be.
I think it goes back to that trust issue. Like, white people have a really bad reputation with people of color, and it's very historical. And so I feel like, yeah, you know, you can get to know people on a one-on-one basis, but there is nothing like seeing someone that looks like you doing the thing that you should be doing. And I just think that if we got more people in the game, more people of color in the game, then it would be easier. It would happen faster because now you're just in your community being you and helping people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. It is, it's a powerful thing. I heard a quote by Tina Fey. Tina Fey talked about when she went to Saturday Night Live for the first time, there were no women, there were no people of color. It was, everybody looked the same in the room, right? And she said once Saturday Night Live started to kind of diversify with they do table reads, right? What it looked like in the table read, also what it sounded like in the table read changed. And what she meant by that was that the jokes started to change. You got to have a different flavor of jokes. The innovation in the room changed. You got to just have different life experiences and backgrounds. And it's important for so many different reasons. And just culturally, a lot of times there's a cultural comfortability, right? That if you have somebody that looks like you on the other side, there's just there's an instant connection, right? And I think that not only lenders, but the brokerages that need to continue to do, which I think it is an important conversation that's being had now. And we're starting to see more intentional action around it, right? And so it's been great, and we're going to continue to do our parts in the industry, right? Next one I got for you guys, mindset. We talked about mindset in the first panel. How do we change the mindset? This one is a good one for you guys, is like you ladies, is renters. And within the Black community and minority communities, we become long-term renters, right? We become long-term renters. How do we change the mindset around renting to home ownership, right? How do we change that mindset?
I'm going to go back to education again. Sondra and myself, we hold, I would say last month we hold 3 homebuyer classes.
And Sondra is one of our other panelists, a movement loan officer. So shout out to Sondra.
Where we educate for 5 hours on the home buying process from A to Z. So when you leave this class, you know the contracts, you know the lending process, what to submit to the loan officer, and how to get in contact with the real estate agent. So you know it from A to Z when you leave our class. So for me, it's education.
I love it. And that education helps, even
Absolutely.
though, like, because a lot of it is sometimes misconceptions and fear, and it helps break that down, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also education. I think that it needs to start earlier. It does need to happen in high school. Our kids should be graduating with information, with good information, right? So they can make a solid decision of what they want to do as they move forward. I think it is us going into communities that are underserved and really bringing awareness and education into communities, inspiring people, showing people. It's all about just showing people how to do it. If you know, there's so many people. When I look at like my family, I look at my husband's family, I look at my family, and the comparison in home ownership is drastic.
Mm-hmm.
My whole family, everybody owns. Everybody, my mom, my dad, my sisters, brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles. There's not one person in my family that does not own a home. Whereas on my husband's side, it's not like that
And you're
at
a
all.
mixed race family, right?
Yes.
Yes. And
Yes.
I'm a mixed race family as well.
Yes.
So I got some
Yes.
mulatto babies running around.
Yes. Lots of mulatto babies. Yes. And so I just think that it goes back to the example and showing people that they can and inspiring people. Do it for your grandparents, do it for your parents, because people died to be able to do this, right? Like died for the opportunity. Our country is not perfect. It has never been perfect. But there has also never always been a path to home ownership for people of color. So we have a lot of work to do, a lot of educating, and a lot of reach out.
Love it. Love your passion for it. Love your passion for it. It's powerful and it inspires me. I'm to go hire you to buy me a house out here. Let's go. Let's go. I love it. I love it. Gosh, the power of real estate. The power of real estate. How powerful is it? How life-changing is it? How life-changing is it, right? So I'm gonna leave you two ladies. This is the last question I have for you. Last one. Same one I have for the gentleman, right? Someone out there that's considering, man, I need to start this process. I don't know how to start this process. I'm scared to start this process. What do you have? What inspiration, what word do you have for someone out there that is considering this today of grabbing the keys of home ownership? And Felicia, you got the key on your necklace. So I'm gonna start with you.
Attend one of our first-time homebuyers classes. Let us show you. Let us show you how to purchase a home, what the steps are. Come to one of our classes.
Love it. When are your class? I'm gonna give you a plug right here. When your class?
We have a class next week, the 14th and the 16th, from 6 to 8.
Where's the class at?
Via Zoom.
Oh, so no excuses. No excuses. Zoom. Get the link on her in her bio on social. Awesome. I love it. I love it.
I would just let people know it is for you. It's for you. Don't let people tell you that it's not. Don't let the examples of the past mislead you. It is for you. There's opportunity there. It's a lot easier to do than what you think. And many, many times, Black and brown people are like qualified, loan ready. They just don't realize it. So I just think, talk to somebody that you trust. Reach out to somebody. The first person that you should reach out to, honestly, is a lender, because they have the path. They're going to tell you. They're going to tell you exactly what you need credit-wise, what you need income-wise, your debt-to-income ratio. They have the path. Call them.
Call Movement. Call Movement Mortgage, guys. Call Movement Mortgage. Y'all heard leverage earlier today. Use our money. We will help you get in that house. We're going to give you the pathway. Ladies, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you
both. All right, guys, I'm leaving you today, and I got a special MC. My man Ryan Hills is going to MC the next group. Ryan, come on up, man. Come on up. Come on up. I love this guy. Here, this is your seat over here. I'm gonna swap. I'm gonna get out of y'all's way. They're tired of hearing me. I'm gonna sit for 1 second though. But so guys, Ryan is our leader out here in the Pacific Northwest, and Ryan is a special dude. Ryan, man. So Ryan helps us with not only of his normal day job of leading a huge region at Movement, but also on a lot of our diversity initiatives, because I can't do it all by myself, right? It takes each and every one of the Movement family to be able to continue to help us press into some of these issues, right? It's not just on me. Ryan has stepped up, and Ryan helps us even on our Hispanic and Latino initiatives. And Ryan's like, man, I'm the whitest dude in here. Why you guys want me to be a part of this? But it's so important to have advocates like this guy right here. He is a special guy. He pours back, continues to do his part to help educate and bring awareness on why homeownership is important. And man, I just wanted to thank you. I want to thank you for having me out here. us grab the key out here. And man, I appreciate you.
Yeah, don't take off yet, man. Don't take off. Hold on, hang out. Montell flew from Charlotte to be here with us tonight, and he puts these events on across the nation, and we got to drive here. Now, granted, it was rainy, but he had to fly here. So everybody give it up for Montell for like flying from Charlotte.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I'm tired, y'all.
What time is the East Coast?
I don't know. I don't even know what time it is here right now. And I got 4 kids. They are 6, 4, 2, and 1. And
did you hear the groan?
I don't know if y'all can hear that on watching live, but it was a big groan. Big groan of the crowd. And that not only is the age of my kids, but that's also the times I wake up at night when they wake me up. But I am so pumped to be here. So pumped to be here.
Dude, we got work to do. 2 out of 10.
We got some work.
2 out of 10. Seattle, Tacoma. Like my lender and my realtor friends, we got work. 2 out of 10.
You got some work.
And the number one, we were talking on the way here. The number one way, Dinero said it, like the whole panel has already said it. The number one way is to improve diversity in lending and realtors. Hands down. 1B, in my opinion, is to tell these stories. That's why it's so important. Don't downplay what we're doing tonight. Don't downplay telling another person in the community what you did tonight and what you talked about. Because Clinton and Dinero were talking about, hey, these stories weren't told to us. Or they were told in the wrong way, right? So the fact that we go home and we tell these stories on Facebook Live or in our community, that is 1B. Like we have to go home, we have to share this in our community, and it takes the entire community to do that, to get us up to 4 out of 10, which is, guess what? Par for the course. That's just to get us up to what the rest of America is. We got work to do.
We got some work to do, but we're doing it. We're here. Yeah. Let's go.
It's going to take the entire community. So I want to bring up our next guest. Sounds good?
Sounds good to me. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, we're running earlier, which is good. We're doing a good job. But for real, guys, it'll take the entire community. I am blessed to be able to work with. There's a lot of movement family here. You'll see it on their chest. My job is to work for them as their regional director, and it's a blessing to do that. And I'm so happy that a lot of the movement families here today. I want to bring up 2 of them that are really, really great people that have really great stories. So give it up for Sondra. Sondra, come on up, and Brandon Hall. These are amazing stories. Wait till you hear them. Both lenders in the community. And I'll start, we'll let women go first, Brandon. So you got to hang out for a bit. But Sondra, you have an amazing story. It starts coming from Kenya, right? And I'll get to questions later, but I want you guys to tell the stories that you have because they're actually really impactful. And again, it's the entire reason why we need to go home and share these stories on social and within the community. But I'll let you go first and kind of tell us, catch everybody up to speed, and tell us how you moved from Kenya to here and how you got in the business.
Okay. So the reason why I came to the United States is because my husband proposed to me when I was living in South Africa after graduating college. So we moved to the United States and we got married in 2009. The reason why I got into real estate is because my dad was a realtor in Nairobi. So I learned the industry in Nairobi and how it works. So I was always curious to know how it would work in the United States, but I didn't know how. I was working for Citibank in Dallas as a collector. And I was such a good collector that they told me, I think you need to go into mortgage. And that's how I actually started. I joined the mortgage business.
We were talking before the event, and I was asking you, like, how does it compare in Kenya to buy a home versus here in the United States? Can you talk about that? Because I'm fascinated by different countries and how they apply for a loan. Do they even have financing? Is it generational wealth where they own the land and hand it down? Can you talk about that? Because I really think that's super interesting.
So in Kenya, it's you inherit land or you inherit property. And in Kenya, all of us are Black. Most of us are Black. So most people own land. I was there recently, and my grandmother was showing me the different acres of land that she has and who owns. She's like, your uncle owns this, and this other uncle owns this, and this cousin of yours is fighting about this land. So we inherit a lot of land. And when we move here, when we make money, we're trying to buy more land, we're trying to buy properties, we're trying to buy apartments back home. So when we retire, we're just gonna be chilling. So that's the whole dream when we come over here. So if you see, we have apps where we send money. If you look at how much money goes into Kenya, actually we almost carry the economy. Most people in the diaspora, because we're sending a lot of money, we're purchasing land, we're purchasing property and things like that.
You said there wasn't really even financing options. It's more of just you kind of own the land or you pay cash for it, right?
Yeah, mostly people buy everything for cash, whether it's cars or property or apartments, it's cash. So the idea is to buy property here, stay for 5 years or have it for 5 years, and then get the cash, buy a house for cash in Kenya. So, so that's what a lot of people are doing.
It's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
We'll come back and we'll do some Q&A a little bit later. But Brandon, tell us your story, man. I think it's really impactful, and I've heard it a few times. And every time you tell it, like I catch something different. So, catch everybody else up to speed.
Yeah. So first off, I'll kind of tell you guys how I got into the business. I started in 2019. I chased my now beautiful fiance in the front row to Orlando. Started originating there, and one of my best friends that's in the business as well. They had a great opportunity to work with you guys out in Seattle, so he's like, "Come home." I'm like, absolutely. Now I got to convince her to come with me, which wasn't too hard. But what I wanted to do before I got here, once you invited me on this panel, thank you guys for inviting me on here. This is super awesome. I had a conversation with my dad because we're not the closest, right? So I'll kind of give you guys a backstory of who my dad is, where he came from, and then I kind of want to quantify on how that's impacted me, how it's impacted him, and this whole generational wealth. So my dad was born in Sendai, Japan. He was there until he was about 7 years old. As you can imagine, he had a Black father and a Japanese mother. His father was in the military, so he was there for a very short time. Went back home to the States, and as you can imagine, there's this little kid there, the only kid in probably all of Japan that has an afro, right? Afro's this big and caused a lot of problems, right? He had a lot of discrimination there. My mom's told me stories of, he hasn't personally told me yet, which I don't know if it's a pride thing or whatever, but stories of him getting beat up after school, and the color of his skin. They would obviously in Japanese, and they'd make fun of his hair, right? And so his mom was like, no, I want to find a better opportunity for you. Shipped him over to the United States, and there's a loving Black family that took him in. So now he's in a position to where he's around people that are going to be a lot more comfortable, that look like him, and he actually he feels like he fits in, right? So we kind of fast forward till his mid-20s. He moves out to Seattle, doesn't have any family, doesn't have any friends, no connections out here. So he's trying to make it on his own, right? And what he does, obviously, he's renting apartment, condo, and he's living with friends and just trying to make it like everybody else. And my whole point of the story is, when you don't have any type of connections or any guidance or mentors or anything that kind of explain how all the game, like Dinero was saying, how the game works, you're literally going to live paycheck to paycheck, and you're going to just make sure that your rent's paid. So kind of the scenario that he was in, and the current condo he's in right now, he moved in 99. He was attracted to it because it was low income housing, and I think he told me it was about $600 a month. So he's like, great, I can make this work. I'm gonna figure this out.
Dinero said, I just got to pay my rent.
Yeah, exactly. So he's just trying to pay his rent.
Yeah.
But when we quantify that now, right, hindsight's 2020. If we look at, so he's in the SeaTac area, actually super close to the airport. So if we quantify that now and we look at let's just call it a 2,000 square foot, 1,800 square foot house in SeaTac, maybe looking at about 800,000 now, let's just call it, right? So in 99 till now, it's 23 years. He would have been almost done with that loan. He would have a net worth of, close to $700,000, and he could retire, right? He's at the age where, it's time, like, I don't want to work anymore. He's 67 years old. And it's sad because you can't, right? Now, if he just had that one simple conversation or had that one connection when he was in his early 20s, he could retire. He could, he could have paid, I didn't go to college, but he could have paid my way through college, with that equity through the house, right? So there's so many different ways that he could have used that equity throughout the years, started a business. Even now he could sell that property, downsize into a condo. And now you have $500,000 that you can sit on, or $400,000 that you can sit on top of Social Security, and you can retire. You can live the rest of your life. You know what I mean? He could do what his ultimate goals are. So that's, that's the thing that I think is so important about initiatives like this, is trying to get the education to those types of people, right? There's so many people out there that don't understand that, and it's comfortable making, living in low income housing, or even not, right? Just renting the rest of your life. So,
So what happened with your father back in 99? Did nobody have that conversation with him? Like, it wasn't an option?
Not at all. And the funny part is I talked to him about it when I told him I was doing this. I talked to him. I was like, you got to give me some nuggets, because, this is big for me. And he just mentioned, he was like, I didn't think that was a possibility. Like, that's for rich people, right? And same thing like Dinero was saying, like, he's the same guy that keeps, he has his all of his cash in his pocket. He doesn't have really any money in the bank, and that's just there's no trust there. So that diversity thing is absolutely huge. If he had someone at a local Wells Fargo that looked like him, maybe I'm like, hey, come sit down for a minute. And the best part about, what we're trying to do is talk to a loan officer or any of us. It's free. There's no cost. There's no obligation. So if someone came to me tomorrow and was like, hey, like, I want to, do something. Here's my goals for my family. I'm like, cool. If it's 2 years, 5 years down the line, let's at least get you on some type of path. And then obviously that goes into some of the misconceptions too, which, we can dive into a little bit later. But that's all stuff that we can do, right? We can set up my game plan, a savings goal. If credit's not there, there's certain tools we can use to get them on track. So
simple conversation.
Yeah.
A simple grab the key back in 1999 would have changed his net worth by how much did you say? I mean,
right now, probably around 700,000.
Yeah. Right. And then you talk about, how do you get generational wealth? How do you hand it down to your children? That's how. A simple story, a simple conversation back in 1999. And I think you would have qualified.
Yeah.
Like you looked at the financials, like I could have got you in a home 23 years ago.
Yep.
And that's, again, back to full circle, why stories, why conversations matter, and why we have to continue to have them. So that's kind of how, like, a little bit of your backstory. I know you also have a story on how, like, that's impacted now that you're the loan officer and you're going around and educating those. You have a story where you've actually been able to teach people about money and leverage. Can you tell that story?
Yeah. So, I mean, we see this every day. So a lot of my business is in Florida too. So down in Miami, Tampa, Orlando. So all the time, the most shocking part that I see is when I have a Black family come in and we get them approved, right? At first they're, very skeptical about, I may not qualify, or, hey, my credit's not good. And okay, let's take a look at it. Let's at least see where you are and see what we can do for you. And how shocked and, like, appreciative they are once we get them approved, because they have no idea that, it's even possible. But no, there's one of my agents down in Miami. I told him the same thing. I'm like, hey, give me some substance that I can bring to our dialogue. And he was telling me the story that he had this client, so a few years back, where she got in an auto accident. She was going to get awarded $140,000 from this accident, and she declined it because she thought she was going to lose her low income housing and her disability. She declined this massive lump sum. I don't even understand how this works. So, and that's another part of the education piece. She may not, have thought she had someone to talk to and kind of walk her through this, like, hey, what do I do with this money? And if she would have just talked to any of us, I mean, we could have bought her a duplex to where, she was renting out the other half of the unit, paying most of her mortgage, and had some money left over. Terrible.
Yeah, $140,000 walked away from it. I do want to get into like your expertise, and you guys meet with people in the community every day, and you see them have misconceptions like, I can't qualify for a home. And I know a lot of it's credit, so I want to talk credit in a minute, but leaving credit aside, what do you think is the biggest misconception that you're seeing when you're out in the community talking to them, trying to get them pre-qualified? What do you think the biggest misconception is out there so we can help dispel it?
Okay. I think a lot of people don't actually think that they can afford to buy a home. And a lot of people in my community work 2 or 3 jobs. So those 2 or 3 jobs is almost 100,000, and they're working 40 hours a week. And they still don't believe that they can own a home. They've been living here maybe 20 years or longer. So I get to meet a lot of people on the phone, and they just don't know that they can afford. So when we speak to them, when they come to understand that they can afford to buy a home, it's a big game changer for them. But also, there's a lot of misconception about credit and how their credit is, and that they cannot repair their credit. They don't know how credit works. Yeah.
Yeah, they think they have to have perfect credit. Like all of us have dings and have made errors in our lives, right? That doesn't need to be perfect. I'm guessing down payment comes up every once in a while. Like I need to have 20% down.
Yeah, down payment comes up quite a bit. And a lot of people don't know, like in the industry, we all know that there's down payment assistance, there's state assistance programs. But even if you don't have, the capital, which is, it can be challenging to, save up a 10, 20% down payment, but there's so many different types of programs that will actually help you with the down payment and some of your closing costs potentially. So that's one that I see, pretty frequently. And then obviously, the credit, and most of the time when we're, they're looking at Credit Karma, right? We see them, like, hey, a screenshot of their credit scores. And I'm like, hey, let's look at this and let's actually, dive in and see why your credit is dinged, because a lot of it is people don't know how credit works as well, right? In general. So, you're taking a look at it. Some of them may only have 2 credit cards that are maxed out at $500. Like, hey, let's pay those off, and your score is going to go up to, higher 600, maybe potentially even lower 700 range. So that's why it's so important for them to speak to a loan officer, because it's free. You know what I mean? If we start off rocky, we can get to a point to where you're going to put your family in a much better situation.
I know this seems like obvious stuff, but there's people watching at home. And I want to again speak to, hey, the biggest hurdles are I don't have a down payment and I don't have perfect credit. So I know this seems obvious, and even some of the realtors in the audience probably know this, but speak to that and say, hey, and maybe even tell a story. We just helped a family with 0 down, and this was their credit. I would love to hear a story from each of you on that. Who wants to go first?
I'll talk about credit. I had a client, her credit score was 350. And she decided after graduating college, she had a lot of student loans. So she decided after college, she was going to try and pay off most of her debt and get her credit to somewhere. So she whenever she would get her tax return or her tax refund, she would pay off whatever is in collections or whatever she needed to pay for. So she did this for like 3 years, but never ever checked her credit. So when I met her at a birthday, and she told me, oh, I'm thinking about buying a home, but I don't know if I can afford to. I had really bad credit, but I haven't checked. So when I went to do a pre-approval, I told her, guess what your credit is? You're at 750. She started to cry because this whole time she never checked to see what her score was. So she started to cry and she said, I've been working, I've been doing all this, but I never bothered to check where my score was. I can't believe that I'm at 750 coming from 350. And what's interesting is, as soon as she got into the market to look for a house, her offer was accepted in 1 week. Yes. So that was an amazing story, very inspiring.
Yeah, a lot of times it's a journey too. And just, again, showing the vision that the journey can happen. It may take a little bit of time to get your credit from 350 or 450 to 600. People buy houses with the 600 credit score all the time, right? But if nobody's going to take him by the hand and go, let me walk this journey with you, and it may take a month or two, but honestly, looking back, I bet you his dad would have walked that journey back in 1999 for a month or two, right? And so that's the importance of going, let me show you what this looks like. Let me walk this journey with you. I'm going to help you go from 350 to 720, which is an amazing story. Brandon, how about you?
Yeah. So, I mean, we have access to so many different options, and I have a story. I think it was last year. Similar situation. Family doesn't have a big down payment. They don't have a lot of funds to put towards a home, and I was kind of looking at the areas that they were looking in. Keep in mind, this is in Florida, so it was like southwest of Orlando, and it's a really big USDA community. So in that, we're taking a look in that, their income, their debt to income ratio, et cetera. And we find out like, hey, the areas that you're looking in, you can do 100% financing. We get a little bit of help from, the sellers, get a slight seller credit. And now they're into the home with maybe a cost of an appraisal. So this family actually closed with us. I think it was about a 2-month process. Credit was great. But again, like there's so many different scenarios and we have so many different options that, if you're low credit or you don't have enough funds, like there's probably an option for you. Yeah.
If you guys were to, find a young couple or a young person that has no idea where to start, I think I want to buy a home. I'm not sure if I can buy a home. Do I need a realtor? Do I not? Like, again, there's a lot of people watching at home and some people in the audience that are going to go home and share these stories. How would you educate them? How would you inspire them and say, these are the first steps that you need to take to prepare to buy your first home?
I think when you start by speaking to a lender, you find out how much you can actually afford, or what steps do I need to take so that I'm able to afford to buy a home. So I think the first thing is to speak to a lender. In that way, you'll know the next step to take towards buying a home.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely going back to it not costing anything, no obligation. Definitely talk to a lender to see where they're at. But most importantly, to share these stories. You know what I mean? Like if I have a home buyer that's kind of on the fence, like, I don't know if this is a good time to buy, or, whatever, their hesitation is. Like I have, like from over the years, I've developed all these stories to where, like the one for my dad, I use that, pretty frequently when I'm talking about generational wealth, especially to, a younger kid that maybe just got out of school that may not be ready yet, maybe a few years. And, I really kind of explain portion of the game with them, right? I'm trying to kind of educate them on what it means to be a homeowner and also what it means to buy a fixed payment too, which is super important, right? So if you're buying it, like for my dad, for instance, like that payment on a house in that time, maybe $100,000 home in the late 90s, he would have had a fixed payment of about $1,000. Moving forward to now, the same place that he's in, it's about $1,500 for a low income. You know what I mean? Maybe property taxes adjusted a little bit, but he still would have been most likely under than what the current rent is. So that's the thing I think people forget a lot too, is your mortgage payment is fixed and it's not going to adjust inflation like rent is. So I think if you explain all these key elements, I think that's really going to help push them over that boundary.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you guys one last question that may seem obvious, but just why are you guys so passionate about home ownership? The one thing I'll add to what you guys said, and Clinton was talking about this earlier, is just money management. Like lenders will call that a debt to income ratio. It's a fancy word for a budget. We want to help you get into a home. We want to make sure you can afford it though. So we have to have a conversation around your budget, and we call it debt to income ratio. And it starts there. Let's make sure you can afford this home. As Dinero said, there's very few things that appreciate in this world, and being a homeowner is one of them. And the last couple of years, if you're a homeowner, you loved it. It went up 10, 20%. And we want you to be a part of that, but we want to make sure that you can afford that long-term. So have that budgeting conversation, have that debt to income ratio conversation. So you're not home broke, because that's a real thing. You can be home broke. And we all saw what that, I was in the business back in 2008. I don't know if some of you were. We all know how that plays out. And so we've learned that lesson, and let's make sure we don't repeat that. Have that debt to income, have that budgeting conversation. It's so important. But before we wrap, again, why is it? And you kind of guys both have told your stories and why it's so important, but tell us like why individually, why it's so important for you guys to go out and help further grab the key initiative and get people into homes of their own.
I think it's important, and why I'm so passionate about it is because anyone can do it. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many people that make average salaries, average scenarios, and their net worth is in the millions just because they decided to make a decision. Had someone there explaining the process to them, right? Like, hey, here is how you actually build wealth in the United States, and they did it. So, I mean, seeing that is crucial. And then on top of it too, kind of going back to, Tacoma, 2 out of every 10 homes, like you also got to remember that's 8 out of every 10 homes where they don't have equity to pull from for, their kids, right? For anything that they want to do. If the kid wants to start a business, kid wants to go to college, kid wants to go try, like whatever it may be, like that's so many, missed opportunities. And then also too, those same kids also are going to take on student loans. So when those kids go to buy houses, it's going to be even harder. So a lot of the families that, 7 out of 10 here in the United States or Tacoma, all of those families, if the kid wants to go to college and, they got to shell out 40 grand, pull out a home equity line of credit and you're done. Like that kid now, once he's done with college, goes to apply with someone like us, there's no student loans. It's much easier to qualify.
I think it's important, especially for me being a Black woman, representation is important. And like the other speakers had said, there's no trust. So when I come across people who look like me, they're more encouraged and they'll trust me more to do the loan and that I'm not going to rip them off or do anything. I remember there's a client I had. Whenever the underwriter would ask for conditions, she'd say, "That's a racist underwriter. They need to change that underwriter." And I would tell her, "No, these are requirements from the investor." And I tell her, when they're racist, I'll be the first to tell you. Right. So there's a lot of trust. So I feel like just being a Black woman, I play a big role as a lender. And also it's very, generational wealth is very, very important to me because my life has been changed because of generational wealth. And I think educating other people about generational wealth and how owning property will change your children's generation and your children's other generation, I think that's very, very important for me and everybody.
Love that. Well, give it up one more time for Sondra and Brandon Hall.
Thanks, guys.
Before I hand it back to Dinero, Dinero, you're going to come up and close? No, Montell. We're probably gonna close early, which we have refreshments. We can break bread and hang out, listen to music and stuff. But I do want to give a couple thanks and shout outs to Eric Yoakley and Ryan Christensen for all the audio, video, Facebook Live.
Crushing it. Always crushing it.
I jumped on Facebook Live and you guys, and it's fire. It looks really good. It looks really good.
Let's go.
And I want to give Montell one thing. He doesn't know about this. And he came to rainy Seattle to do Grab the Key with us.
I'll take a gift.
And I was thinking, man, what can we send him back with? And I was like,
an umbrella. Yes.
He took the hotel's umbrella. It's still in my truck. So he's not going to know what this is, but it is from Seattle. So you can go back and everybody in Charlotte's going to be like, what the heck is that? I'll show you what it is. So I drove up to Seattle during the day yesterday to have this made, but it's a custom Seattle Kraken jersey.
Oh, I like it. Hey,
what number is this, Montell?
That's my college jersey number right there. That's my college basketball jersey.
I had to look it up.
Number.
That's his college jersey number. So Montell, I love you, buddy. Thanks for coming.
My man. Oh, that's it. I'm gonna put this on and wear it tonight.
Heck yeah.
That is fresh.
Close us out, buddy. Close us out.
Thank you. Well, guys, wow. We heard some impactful, passionate, fantastic stories. And I hope everybody that is out here today, they were impacted. They were impacted, and that you may have an opportunity to tell a story, to take the time to help someone that may not look like you, educate them on the opportunity of home ownership and why it's important, because you just never know the unseen work that you do when that happens, right? The generations that you have the opportunity of changing. We are trying to change people's lives through homeownership. And how powerful is that? You know, as we've talked about this, you guys have heard us talk about generational wealth. There's a direct correlation to homeownership and your net worth. It's a direct correlation. Right now, today, in the Black community, the average net worth is $17,000. And there's a study that's been done that pretty much says, I think, I can't remember if it's in the next 10 years or so, but the net worth in the Black community will go to zero. Zero. If you hear that and you don't feel inspired to tell a story, inspired to educate, inspired to help someone get into the industry that may not look like you, to help someone get into a home that doesn't look like you, guys, we have to do the next best step to help people grab the keys of homeownership. So that is my challenge to everybody in the crowd today. That is my challenge for everybody watching live today. Do the next step. Just one thing. Just do one thing to help people grab the keys of homeownership. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you coming out.